Okay, so let's talk about Sunday, April 13th, just yesterday. We're looking at Kailasapatnam, a village in Andhra Pradesh's Anakapalle district.
Right. And it sounds like just a regular Sunday, quiet, ordinary.
Until it wasn't. Suddenly, this firecracker manufacturing unit, it just becomes the absolute center of this horrific explosion.
Yeah, the contrast is really stark, isn't it? From a place of, controlled little sparks to just devastation.
And the transformation was incredibly fast. Brutal, really.
One moment people are working, doing their jobs, and the next, engulfed. The numbers themselves are just, well, they're staggering.
8 people lost their lives.
Yeah.
Instantly, and another 8 injured. It's hard to comprehend.
It really is. And these are just numbers on a page. This is a community, families, lives completely altered forever.
You really have to stop and think about that beyond the initial shock of the headline. 8 individuals.
And the explosion itself, around, 12:45 p.m.?
Mm-hmm.
The descriptions are intense.
Like a roar, they said. A chain reaction that just ripped through the place, turning it into a fireball almost immediately.
It paints a picture of such speed, such violence. There was simply no time for anyone inside to react, to even try and get away. It's terrifying to even think about.
Absolutely. And that's why we wanted to, dig a bit deeper here. This isn't just about reporting an event.
No, it's about trying to understand the layers. What led to this? What does it mean for the people there? We've been looking at various accounts to try and piece it together.
And I think it's important, really important, to actually say the names of those who were lost, to remember them as people.
Let's do that.
The reports list them as Dadi Ramalakshmi, she was 35, from Rajapeta, Puram Papa, 40.
Then Gumpina Vinababu, 34, and Sangaradi Govindu, 40, and Apikanda Palaya, 50. All 3 from Kailasapatnam itself.
Right, from the village. Also Senapati Babarao, 55, from Chaduvada, Devar Nirmala, 38, from Vetlapalam.
And Hemanth, just 20 years old, from Bhimunipatnam.
20 years old. It just hits hard, doesn't it? Each one a person with a family, friends, a life within their community.
Exactly. It grounds the tragedy. They weren't just workers in a unit, they were individuals. Saying their names feels like the least we can do.
And then you have the survivors, the injured, facing just an immense struggle right now.
6 were taken to King George Hospital, KGH, in Visakhapatnam. 2 others went to Narsapatnam Area Hospital.
The scene described at KGH's burns ward, it sounds incredibly grim, like a war zone almost. Bandages, 4V drips, intense.
And the severity. One person with 90% burns. It's almost unimaginable. Another with 50%, someone else with 30%.
Just devastating injuries. And even for others, a fractured leg, other less severe burns, but still incredibly traumatic.
It really shows the sheer force of that blast. Indiscriminate.
You do have to acknowledge the response from the hospital teams, though. Dr. P. Sivananda at KGH, the superintendent.
Yeah, the report suggests he acted very quickly. Got the teams mobilized, plastic surgeons, paramedics.
And crucially, getting those patients straight to the burns unit's operating theater for immediate wound cleaning.
Absolutely critical in those first moments. With burns that severe, the risk of infection is just enormous.
And then there's the smoke inhalation too, right? The chemical fumes.
Exactly. That adds another layer of danger, potential respiratory damage, plus the risk of internal injuries that might not show up right away. It's a huge challenge for the medical staff.
So alongside the medical response, the official reaction started coming in pretty quickly.
As you'd expect, Chief Minister Chandrababu Naidu called for the best possible care for the injured and a full investigation into the cause.
Standard procedure, but important. Showing concern, promising answers.
And Prime Minister Modi also expressed condolences via X, formerly Twitter, and announced financial aid.
Right, the ex gratia payments. 2 lakh rupees for the families of the deceased, 50,000 for the injured, from the PM's National Relief Fund.
It's immediate help, which is needed, but as we know, no amount of money can truly replace a life lost.
Of course not. Then you had officials on the ground. Home Minister Anitha went to the site.
Yeah, coordinating hospital transfers, meeting with the families, showing that government presence.
And she mentioned something that really, it really stood out in the reports.
What was that?
This unit, it had a valid license, not just current, but valid until 2026.
Wow. Okay, that changes things, doesn't it? Or at least it raises serious questions.
It really does. If a licensed facility can have an accident this catastrophic, what does that say about the safety regulations, about oversight?
Exactly. And it immediately makes you think, what about the unlicensed units? If the licensed ones aren't safe, the danger in the unregulated ones could be even higher. It's a really troubling detail.
Following that, the state government also announced compensation 15 lakh rupees per family of the deceased workers, and covering all medical costs for the injured.
So more financial support coming through. Meanwhile, the investigation continues at the site.
Forensic teams are there now, sifting through everything. The initial word seems to be that it happened during gunpowder preparation.
That specific stage.
Yeah.
Mixing the gunpowder.
Yeah, and maybe an issue with the chemical proportions. That's the preliminary thought anyway.
That makes sense, unfortunately. It's such a volatile process. Any small mistake in the mix or handling, the consequences can be enormous. The forensics will be key to confirming that.
But here's the other thing that's deeply worrying. This isn't the first time, is it?
No. The reports brought this up too. 2015. Gokalapadu. A similar explosion.
9 people died in that one. 9.
The fact that this is happening again in the same region, it strongly suggests this isn't just a random, isolated incident. There might be more systemic problems in the firecracker industry there.
It feels like a pattern, a terrible, tragic pattern.
And you have to ask why. Why does this keep happening? Are corners being cut on safety? Maybe to save costs? Is that happening in both licensed and unlicensed places?
Is the training adequate for people handling materials that are basically explosives?
That's a huge question. And what about oversight? Are the rules strong enough? And are they actually being enforced effectively?
And the reports also touch on the workers themselves. Often they're in, vulnerable economic positions.
Right. They might feel they don't have much choice but to take on risky work just to make a living. There's a power dynamic there that can definitely compromise safety.
So this latest blast, Anakapalle, it just feels like it has to be a wake-up call for everyone involved.
It absolutely should be. For the families, obviously, for the injured, the community, the authorities. But the big question is, will it lead to real change?
We've seen investigations before, after the 2015 incident, presumably. What makes this time different?
That's the core issue. Will the findings actually translate into stricter enforcement, better training, maybe even changes to how these things are made?
Yeah, it forces that bigger question, doesn't it? How are firecrackers made? Are the current methods just fundamentally too dangerous?
Are there safer ways, safer chemicals, different processes? Or, and this is the tough one, do the risks, given this repeated loss of life, simply outweigh the tradition?
Really difficult questions, no easy answers there.
None at all. Right now, obviously, the focus has to be on supporting the injured, helping the bereaved families through this nightmare. That's paramount.
Absolutely, the immediate human need.
But looking ahead, beyond this immediate crisis, there's such a clear, urgent need for safer workplaces in this industry. Much stricter rules, and rules that are actually followed, enforced.
A system that truly puts people's lives first, above everything else.
That have to be the goal.
So maybe the next time any of us see or hear firecrackers, it's worth just taking a moment, remembering the names we mentioned.
Dadi, Puram, Gumpina, Govindu, Palaya, Babarao, Nirmala, and Hemant.
Their lives were just gone in an instant. Their stories matter.
And remember, this is still unfolding. The injured are fighting. The investigations are still digging. We don't have all the answers yet.
Not by a long shot, but ultimately it feels like there's a responsibility here, doesn't there? A collective one.
For sure. To learn for this, to demand change, to ensure that the lessons from Kailasapatnam actually stick this time.
Because if we don't, if things just go back to how they were, it feels almost inevitable that we'll be having the same conversation again about another town, another explosion, another list of names.
And that would be the greatest tragedy of all.